Hi. So today's going to be a little different. I'm going to set up a board. That's not different. You've seen that before, but it's the fact that this board is really short. It doesn't look very long. This is a deck that I made. It's around 90 millimeters long and it's 32 millimeters wide. This is the setup I'm using right now. This is a Goat on the Road deck and it's 34 millimeters wide and I think around 98 millimeters long. I'm going to use the trucks that are on this one. These are just 32 millimeter Black River trucks. So there's a few reasons why I think maybe people don't use shorter fingerboards like this. And first of all, it might be that they just are really bad, and I'll find that out pretty quickly if they are. But I think also it's just companies don't offer different lengths of fingerboards. And there's a few reasons for that. First of all, you would have to have different molds for every single length. And that's kind of one of the issues with this is it's the same mold I would use for one of the longer ones that I've made, like this one. I've just basically made the kick super short, and that's not exactly the same as just making a super short deck. The other reason is that it kind of makes choosing a deck even more complicated than it already is. It's already kind of difficult to figure out what deck size you like, what width you like. You kind of have to try both a thinner board and then also a wider board to find out, oh, maybe I like the wider boards. Having different lengths just makes that more complicated. I have not gripped a fingerboard in so long. I'm gonna mess this up so bad. I don't know how I did that bad. Okay, so here's the deal. I was gonna make a video where I set up this board, but the problem is it's a board that I made, which means that, of course, the screw holes are off-center. Okay, change of plan. We're gonna see if I can take these tech deck trucks and put them on this board because the screw holes are all over the place. This thing is so ugly. I am going to swap out the wheels for some flat-face G8s. Okay, it is done. First impressions are, I can tell it's short. It does feel different. I'll probably give it like a week or two, and then I'll do more of a review to see if maybe all boards should be this short. Okay, I lied and I'm sorry, but it hasn't been a week. It hasn't been 2 weeks. It's been like 5 days. As much as I want to take my time to get as used to this board as possible, I just don't have that time. But anyways, here's what I've learned after using it for a while. I'm going to divide this into sort of 2 points. First of all is style, how it affects my style, and then second of all is performance and tech. So the first thing I'd like to mention about style is actually something I've sort of observed before I ever tried using this super short fingerboard, and that's that I think your size of your hands changes your style in fingerboarding and how you fingerboard and how it looks. And I'll give some examples. First of all is Jay Linehan. I think his hands might be a little big, or maybe it just looks that way, but I think it really affects his style, and you can kind of see that. And you can see that in any other person with big hands who's fingerboarding. You can see it does definitely affect their style, at least in my opinion. One thing in specific that it has changed as far as style is kind of how far apart my fingers are on the board, because it's going to be different on this than it would be on a longer board where I feel like I have to make them farther apart. So it gives this kind of look that's less strained because you're not straining to spread your fingers out as much. But it can also make doing certain tricks difficult, having them close together, and I'll talk about that more in the performance section. As far as performance goes, I think I do just prefer a little shorter decks. I think, at least for me, maybe I have smaller hands or something, it makes tricks like tray flips or laser flips a lot easier. But there are a few issues with it being this short. First of all, things like heel flips and nollie heel flips, it's a lot harder to make sure that it doesn't go varial. Oftentimes it'll accidentally just go varial. Same with kick flips, although kick flips are just easier tricks in general, so it's not as much of a problem. But I mean, we've all experienced this when we were first learning these tricks, is oftentimes the board just wants to turn to the side. And that's how we often learn varial flips first, is when we're trying to kick flip. And it's just a bit more of a problem with this board because it turns so much easier. As I mentioned before, there are certain tricks that are just harder to do with your fingers closer together. They might be more uncomfortable when your fingers are spread out like that, but it simply makes the performance of the actual tricks easier. So that's something to look out for. Other than that, it's a pretty normal deck. There's not much else to think about when you're using it. It's not super distracting or gimmicky to use it. So should we all be riding short boards? Probably not, but maybe some of us should.